ICT, Information Communication Technologies, that includes computers, the internet, mobile phones and satellites, have become powerful tools for communication, and it's created a new information society. These are tools to reduce poverty, empower people, and generally improve the quality of life. One of Africa's champions for promoting ICTs is Senegal's president.
ICT is the best way for Africa to reach knowledge and expertise because it allows to students and African producers to see and to know what is going on in the world. That allows us to make comparison. This is why we think that is a priority for Africa.
The development of ICTs in Africa faces many challenges. Content creation, capacity building, and telecommunications infrastructure development must be strengthened. Good policies must be put in place to regulate the industry. Governments must be willing to put themselves under scrutiny of its citizens to make their work more efficient. And people have to be educated and trained to enable them to enter the information society.
The challenge is for Africa to be effectively and more strongly engaged in the global economy and to change the terms on which the debate takes place. And if we are marginalized in the ICT area, then we'll not be able to catch up. As far back as 1995, we put the agenda for the Africa Information Society initiative on the table, and we've seen tremendous progress in many African countries in embracing ICT for development.
We examine the different approaches for using ICT for development in 4 African countries. Ghana, where the government has completed their national e-strategy policy, opening the way for private investors to come in and develop ICTs in a deregulated environment.
That's right. And I'm calling from Hong Kong, and we're calling all the BT customers in the area. May I please confirm if you're still a BT customer?
We live in the age of outsourcing. American companies have realized that it is much cheaper to outsource or locate parts of their businesses to third world economies in order to save money in their countries.
Ethiopia is trying to catch up and achieve its national development goals by investing heavily in the ICT sector. For instance, in the field of education, lessons are broadcast from the capital, Addis Ababa, via satellite directly into the classroom onto expensive plasma screens.
Our students have the same program all the way throughout the country.
Do you think this replaces your teacher?
When the teacher sees you, if that's a real teacher, when he sees your face, he may say that you haven't understand that concept, so he may repeat it. But the TV teacher don't do that, so I think it won't replace the real teacher.
Uganda is amongst the first group of African countries to liberalize the telecommunications market. A number of initiatives and a lot of pilot projects are taking place to enable ICTs to improve health, education, and to make them relevant in people's lives.
Nti kompyuta eno ogyeyambisa otya okusomesa abakyala mu byalo?
Situla nenoonya wali amasannyalaze nenywa nembalumba awaka kubanga baba balima ate njagala ndaba awaka nga bwe banaakola pulogulaamu bwe bagamba mmala gagisitula naye ezitowa zaako
Rwanda demonstrates how, with the right mixture of political will and determination at the highest level, even a small, less endowed country can make some ICT strides.
We have been working with the government to be able to train manpower of all sorts. Technicians for networking, Technicians for hardware maintenance will be able to manipulate and maintain the computers, and the technicians for software management. The government is putting up computers in primary schools and in secondary schools. We needed to train the teachers to be able to train, to teach using computers.
ICT, it is better to see it as a key enabling tool for socio-economic development. It has value, it adds to different activities in the socio-economic development process, be it in the public or in the private sectors. And therefore, we think it is very central, and every sector benefits from that. So that's why we have chosen to go along that route.
Africa has missed many chances. It missed the agricultural revolution, it missed the industrial revolution. It cannot afford to miss the information revolution. All African countries are capable of joining the information world because there are many people, and the information revolution is based on people. So the most important thing is training. Once we build human capacity, we'll be able to get people to participate in the information society.
ICA, the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, has its headquarters in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. ICA has been working with 53 African governments to address key challenges through the African Information Society Initiative, AISI. This regional initiative is to build Africa's information society. Member states have been developing and implementing national ICT policies and plans for telecommunications infrastructure, content creation, and capacity building to accelerate national socio-economic development.
ICA's role has been a leadership role in launching the African Initiative on the Society of Information, in also accompanying and assisting member countries in policy designs and design of the National Information and Communication Infrastructure Development Plan, and in seeing it that member countries implement this plan as smoothly as possible.
ICA is organizing training programs to create awareness to enable parliamentarians and decision makers to understand the importance of ICTs. Not many decision makers are aware of the issues and implications of the information society. So, they're not able to actively participate in national debates on ICTs.
This course is very important because nowadays our government is implementing this good governance in the country. We are in least developed one of the least developed countries in the world, and we are trying to catch up the industrialized countries for the implementation of all developing aspects. We need this ICT course.
Ethiopia is in transition. A lot of changes are going on to achieve its national development goals, and the country is investing heavily in the ICT sector. Telecom is the basis for the ICT sector, but there's still a monopoly in the telecommunications market.
Currently, this ICT facilitates us to communicate with citizens. You know, we have opened a website where draft legislations can be tabled and reached to the communities. Therefore, citizens can comment on it.
Global business and ICT go hand in hand. It is essential for African businesses to be an active player in this global economic market. Small and medium-sized enterprises that advertise on the internet have an unprecedented opportunity to promote their products around the world, like this manufacturer of genuine leather craftwork in Addis Ababa.
Going to promote export products in the conventional way is a very difficult. job. In the first place, for every product you want to promote on the traditional way, you will have to have a catalog, you will have to participate in trade fairs, you will have to take your products physically from place to place and show it to people that come to where you are to see it. But in e-commerce, you don't have to do that. You publish your website, you have your products placed on your website and make it available for virtual shoppers around the world 24 hours a day. And so Africa can easily reach the entire world of promoting its products on the internet.
Content creation, information on health and education in a language that they can understand, business and partnership with the private sectors and the civil society are important ingredients to expand access to the underserved population. Good telecommunication infrastructure is one of the tools to enable people, especially those in the rural areas, to access information.
Without adequate telecom infrastructure, we were not going to move very far with your ICT ambitions. We therefore needed to work on telecom infrastructure and related issues. We also were to find that we needed to bring in the private sector to help us in the development of the telecom infrastructure that we badly needed. And we were also to find that to facilitate the entry of the private sector, we needed a strong regulatory environment. Therefore, we did strengthen the National Communications Authority, which is the regulatory body.
We still need a huge capital infusion to be able to replace obsolete equipment. You would agree with me that telecommunication technology is changing by the month. And so to be able to catch up with technology and to be able to deliver appropriate services, it is not a matter of one-time financing. It's a matter of continuous financing and the building of a huge subscriber base that can in future be able to support the rollout by itself.
Ghana has a very dynamic private sector. It's a challenge for the government to harmonize its policies for ICTs to develop it throughout the country.
We have always felt that the benefits of ICT should not be limited to those of us who live in the cities. And we've always felt that we should be able to carry the whole country along with us. One group of people that was targeted to be trained in the use of computer and the internet was the chiefs in the rural areas. The chiefs were brought together, they were trained in the basic use of the computer and basic use of the internet. They got so excited about it and they have helped considerably in spreading the message to their people. In most of the rural areas, they do exercise considerable amount of power, and when they get convinced that there are benefits that go with it, it helps a whole lot in propagating the benefits of ICT.
Email no, it's a letter paper. Post office.
There is another methodology which Uganda Communications Commission is using to spread the use of ICTs, and that is through the implementation of what's called the Rural Communications Development Fund. And under the Rural Communications Development Fund, what we do as UCC is to provide incentive in terms of subsidy financing to companies that are prepared to extend ICT services to rural areas.
Technology is being used to improve healthcare, particularly in the rural areas. Up till now, doctors in outlying areas have had to rely on their own skills and knowledge to treat patients.
In the last 1 year, we have been using and we have introduced handheld computers among healthcare providers in 2 districts. So we're able to provide them up-to-date relevant medical content on the common health problems for which many of their patients come to the health clinics. So they're able to generally treat better their people, and then by using the handheld computers for data collection, it relieves their time from the manual processes, and they're able to give more time to treatment of their patients.
Rwanda is perhaps one of the best examples in Africa where leadership is key. The United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, ECA, assisted the government in creating new policies for ICT development. Its president, Paul Kagame, has had a visionary role in terms of how Rwanda's information society should evolve. Education is central in this plan.
Rwanda would like to be a middle-income country in the year 2020. We would like also to have a knowledge-based economy. So with that in mind, we believe that information communication technology and science in general, science and technology is going to help us in order to reach that goal. So if we concentrate on the education of these children, in particular in science and technology, and also in human rights issues and peace education, because we believe that investing in education is a key.
In 1994 in Rwanda, an estimated 800,000 Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed in the genocide. The country's jails are still crammed with around 100,000 suspects who are still awaiting trial. It would take more than a century to try all the cases. Rwanda has chosen to use its traditional justice system called gacaca to try the suspects.
Before the system, all the parquets used the way of bringing the reports by vehicles, but now we have a connection with the internet, and they have to use that link to send all the reports and all the information from there to the Ministry of Justice and to the office of the General Prosecutor here in Kigali.
We need that information for our archives, the national records. So it is very important that we have this ICT. We use it to collect all the information given from the rural areas so that we keep it in our national data bank.
Every 3 months, President Kagame chairs special cabinet meetings where his ministers report on the progress and implementation of the ICT plans in their ministries.
Should start by having correct policies in place and by understanding that this certainly is very key to how we move forward in different sectors of where we want to see development. We can start with our own resources, and then we can argue with our partners and present our case and show and prove that this is going to work.
ICA will scale up its assistance to member states to achieve the Millennium Development Goals and accelerate national socio-economic development. Uganda is amongst the first wave of African countries to use ICTs in its development programs. The telecommunication market has been liberalized, and now mobile phones far exceed fixed telephone lines. Despite this, the developed world is reluctant to do real business with Africa.
I'm a bit disappointed. First, the challenge, as I said, was policies. Policies were in place, we liberalized, we invited companies to come and invest here, and you look at all over Africa. Not really the big guns came to invest here. So that has been a bit of a disappointment, although we have moved ahead. And secondly, there was a big debate about this global fund, ICT global fund, when we were in Geneva. I think is it 2 years ago, November, 2 years ago last year. And again, there was resistance. So apart from the private sector, and secondly, although we have been talking about this digital divide for almost 10 years now, the digital divide between the developed world and Africa has got wider, not narrower. And therefore, that shows the need for real support for this funding. It's getting wider. So we have to address that areas. What has the private sector provided? What can African governments provide? And that gap that remains in terms of infrastructure development, in terms of human resource development, like in education and so on. This needs support. And that's how Africa can now trade with the developed world. They can talk and communicate with the developed world, because Africa has a bigger chance for investment in the future. How will the developed world communicate with Africa if Africa can't communicate?
Africa is very dependent on world trade. The global trading system depends on information communication systems. So, if Africa lags behind, then it's going to affect how it interacts with the rest of the world. ICTs have created alternatives never imagined before to transform economies and society. 53 countries in Africa, with the support of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, are using ICTs to provide education and health services, create competitive businesses, all to assist development. The second World Summit on the Information Society will be organized in Tunis in November 2005 in order to consolidate efforts to build an inclusive and sustainable information society.
ICT is for socioeconomic development. It will allow us to meet many of our objectives. For example, access to education, access to health, good governance. So ICT is a very important tool for development, and policymakers will have to embrace it. We'll have to come up with strategies for content, for infrastructure development. And if we can do that successfully, then ICTs will help us meet many of our socioeconomic development goals.